Hello, this is James Stone from jamesstone.com, and today I'm going to be talking about something I feel passionate about. I'm a front-end developer with 12 years of experience, I would say from Finland mostly, and originally from the US, right now living in Frascati, just outside Rome in Italy. So I think the big thing I was thinking about is that why take-home assignments or take-home technical assignments, technical homework, how you want to think about it, why these things are bullshit, why they suck for you as a developer, and just my opinions about my experience doing them recently. And unfortunately, at the end, I'm going to talk to you about why you should do them anyways, even though they suck. It's bullshit, some stupid ass thing, but you got to do it. There's usually no way around it. All right, so why are they bullshit, and what do I mean by that? I mean, there's a bunch of companies, I won't say which ones, who really advocate their engineering culture on these take-home tests. They talk about why it's the best way to ascertain if a candidate is competent, good to work with, has the right skill level or attitude, all these kinds of things. But I will, whoa, the wasp, ay. But I will interject and give my opinion about it and why I don't think that's actually the case. Of course, I probably can't change these organizations and their process, but I can at least speak out against it. So the first reason why I think they're BS is they're usually not real-world coding assignments. It's not indicative of the kind of work you're going to have when you join a team, either a specific team or that organization. There's some made-up test that somebody concocted to maybe slightly resemble a little bit the tooling, the workflow, problem space, or not. It can be really random. So it's not real-world experience. So you're not going to get a good feel for what it's like to work for that company at all, really. The other problem with it is you do this work in isolation. And this is not in any way, at least in my 12 years of experience, how you work with professional engineering teams or on projects that are engineering focused or have an engineering component. There is always a team. There is always someone leading that team in some way. And there's a way to get feedback, to learn more, to find out what to do, to basically not work in the dark, not work in isolation. So working in isolation is a big problem, I think. Of course, they say you can email the person, ask some questions. That's maybe a topic for a later video. But it's not in any way the same. It's a test. Like any test you've taken, like in America, we have the SAT, the GRE. I somehow succeeded in never taking the SAT, but I have taken GRE, which is a terrible, terrible test for other reasons. But I had to take it. Similar to how I have to do these stupid assignments that people concoct up and make you do. So what are some other things? They rarely focus on it. So I'm a senior person, so I have like some very specific expertise and focus in what I'm doing. I'm front end, I do React, TypeScript. They very rarely do this. So it's rare that I find a test that even has that kind of front end aspect to it. And if it does, It's very, very much minimized. Things are always about some sort of weird Node or other JavaScript tooling backend they created, and having to deal with promises directly, which is something you rarely do. Often it's built in such a way to have major problems or flaws that they want you to discover or not. And you actually don't do much front-end work. If you do any, I think it's like maybe 5%. So for me, as someone who's specialized on the front end for 12 years, and I, of course, can do back-end and full-stack work, how is this in any way showing off what I can do in a role, or even being a part of a conversation with someone? I think it's absurd. So what's the other problem? The time sink. They'll usually tell you some bullshit thing like, this should take you an hour. This would be a couple evenings. If they tell you anything at all, which they might not give you any indication of how much time it should take, either on average, minimum, maximum, they usually don't give you any indication of time. But my experience is that most of these take-home tests, unless you're using maybe AI augmented tools, they probably are in the 20 to 30 hour range to do it right, to do it professionally, which is what they say. They want professional, what do they call it? Production level code, which it can't be really anyways, because you're doing these things in isolation. You can't really bring it to that level easily or within a reasonable time frame. So where do you get that time? I'm going to talk about time for a little bit. So first of all, I got a family. I got 2 little kids. And in Finland, and a lot of organizations build themselves as being family friendly. But I'm going to say bullshit to that about these take-home tests. Because if you have a family, how are you going to work your job full time and come up with 30 hours? And usually the time frame is no more than 2 weeks to complete it. They might not even give you the time frame and say it's open, but it's not really. There's an expectation that it's done quickly and that you put a significant amount of time and effort into it. So where do you come up with that time? Well, you don't have the time. So it means the time comes away from your kids. You got to take time off work, something like that. Do it on the weekend at the expense of your hobbies, at the expense of your life balance. And it's all speculative. This is just to get to the next step in the interview process. If you do a great job, there's no guarantee that you're even going to talk to anyone. You might just get a flat out rejection, which is sometimes what I get. And it's infuriating. So the time sink. And even if you're single, you don't got kids, people got time. Like who's got that 30 hours? Who's got 15 hours? Like we can divide that quickly. It could be like 2 hours every day if you're really consistent. And 2 hours is a lot. And to do something you're not going to get a lot of value of. So the other problem I've got with this time sink is, what do you get out of it? Well, if you do the assignment as asked, and even if you go through the process, which best case, maybe you talk to some people on their team, they look through your code, maybe pick it apart, nitpick it, maybe don't even look at it, maybe have some discussion about it. Again, based on what I was talking about, really doesn't have any sort of correlation to your interests or your focus, and may not be a good indication of your talents as an engineer. So maybe you get to talk about that. But unless you inject a lot of process, unless you spend the time to intentionally come up with ways to get something out of the process other than just completing it and submitting it, all that time is for nothing. 30 hours, nothing. So I had a project recently. I spent 13 plus hours. I'm not even sure how much time, because I don't track time specifically. This was an estimate, and it probably doesn't count time like when I'm thinking about stuff walking around, making notes, other stuff in between. But it took a significant amount of time. And the result was I just got some rejection letter, and it could have been nothing, but I got some, I'll call it bullshit feedback and really nitpicky things. And I didn't even get to talk to a real person. In fact, maybe an AI did it. Maybe it's under the guise of a person. I don't know what it is. But just some nitpicky things. They said some nice stuff. They said some really nitpicky, weird things and said, yeah, we're not going to continue with the process. So the time's just all gone, right? Maybe we could say this video is a way to reclaim some of that because I'm pissed off about it. And I've had other experiences too. But nothing. I've got some ideas of how to improve this, and I'm actually going through another technical project right now too, which I think is bullshit. But I'm going to have to do it. What can I do? So, what can you do? Right? I think the first thing is you can push back and say no. And depending on your situation and how much you want that job, you can just flat out say, I don't do take-home assignments. Or you can push back on it and try to limit the scope, reduce what's required there, even reach out to those contacts and maybe push on them and get some flat answers of how much time is really expected, what are the things they really want to see, so you don't waste your time trying to invent or assume or maybe if you're using AI, hallucinate what they could be looking for, because it's hard to predict in a vacuum without any sort of feedback. But you can push back on it. And I was worried about this, from Finnish perspective in unemployment. It becomes a problem if you enter into a process of applying for a job and you just kind of opt out of it or stop or something like that. You can be denied your benefits with a penalty of 45 days, which is significant. It's like a month and a half's salary. You just don't get paid because you did something, said no to something in the process that you should have continued with. But at least in my research, it seems reasonable that for unpaid technical assignments that exceed more than like 1 or 2 hours amount of time that are done independently, not in collaboration with other people, you can flat out say no and explain why. And this should hold up with the TE office as long as you've got a good justification that it's amounting to, like, we'll call it free work. I don't know that that's exactly the right thing, but something like that, right? You should be compensated or paid to do this type of thing, and it's taking too much of your time, and you can just say no. It's similar to companies charging you some money for training or something like that at the beginning. Like, you can just flat out deny that kind of thing also. But not everyone knows this. You got to research and figure out yourself. So, what to do? How to improve this process? I don't know. Flat out say no. Try to avoid it. And I do this. I try to avoid it. One trick I'm using, and it's worked in some cases, I've just sent them another technical assignment that I've done. And that's one way to a little bit chip away and reclaim a little bit of the time you invested into doing some bullshit assignment that provides no other value. Of course, I don't post it online publicly or anything, but I send them a zip file and explain what it was done for. And I might cover the feedback or not. I usually don't, because the feedback can be very specific and it don't really matter, like what the original people said that were negative. So I don't polish it or fix any of the things that people say, because it can be very subjective, the feedback, at least in my case. So I just don't address it at all. And if I was in a working relationship, I would have probably argued with that person, had a discussion or debate perhaps about whether those choices were really just preference or really best practice or really important or really critical in this particular context, which they probably weren't. So we can push back, and you can push back, and sometimes people might say yes and people might say no. And what's the other thing you can do? Well, sometimes it's maybe not just about the time, but maybe about the timing. And so I've had some success in pushing back on the time frame. And I just am honest with people and tell them, Okay, I can't take a look at this right now, or I don't have time to do this now. I can do it then. Will that work for you? And then you get a yes or a no. And it's a way to kind of maybe polarize, but it's a way to maybe get out of the assignment, or maybe a way to see how flexible they are, or maybe a way to just push it into a time frame that fits better in your lifestyle. So I think I've got one final thing, and the other reason why it's bullshit. So if you think about this 30 hours, we could even think about my baseline of like 13 plus hours. And we could think of like a time frame of like 1 or 2 weeks. The problem with this is it limits how many jobs you can actively apply for with a true intention of going through the whole process, if it's required by that company. Because I can only handle this like maybe every 2 weeks. And even that, I think maybe that's not even realistic in itself. And I wouldn't want to be approaching these projects overlapping on top of each other. So with that, you have to kind of be more strategic about which jobs to apply for and what these things are and what to do, and maybe even investigate. And I think ChatGPT is a pretty good tool for this, and you can use deep research or other things. You can go through and have it do extensive research and find out, is a technical assignment going to be part of their process? Some companies just blatantly put it on their page like they're advertising how strong their engineering department is because they have technical exercises. I think it's total bullshit that technical exercises are not in any way improving the quality of your engineers or your engineering department or company. Maybe it's an assessment tool and a baseline and a test. It's nothing more than that. It has nothing to do with anything else. And it brings us to like, well, why are we here and why do we have these technical assignments? Well, in my opinion, some of the best jobs I've had in my life did not require a technical assignment. And in fact, the conversations we had were not super technical. They tended to be more architectural or more process, more experiential, more about projects you've worked on. And so when there was an alignment of philosophy and approach, these have been like the most engaging conversations and some of the best jobs I've had in my life. And I don't know that I've gotten a job through doing a technical exercise yet. However, where do these come about and when do we see them? Okay, I know a little bit myself because I've been on the other side of the table doing the hiring and the recruitment. So I know that for some people who are junior or don't have a lot of experience, and they don't have much on GitHub or provided much information, so you can't really look at any of their projects or assess their skill level, it's to get a baseline to have a conversation with them about their technical skills and their thoughts and their approaches. So I think if you have a lot of that, then it really should be unnecessary, in my opinion, and I don't think it provides any value at all. And the other reason why you see a lot of them now is because the market sucks. In Finland, market sucks. The economy is bad, and it affects, I think, all industries right now, but it's especially hitting hard for developers, and especially developers who've been working in consultancies. It can be a bit hit or miss because some companies are doing well, some are not. But when times are tough and when there's a surplus of candidates or there's not a deep need for people working in the field, then they just make it more and more difficult to get through the gauntlet of the application process. So it just becomes another thing you have to do, like going and filling out your information that's on your CV a second time, a third time, talking to more and more people. So before, maybe there was less interviews, they were more pointed, you would talk to people higher up much more quickly. Now it's like very, very slow process. And I've seen, at least this is what I'm seeing right now, that you talk to a recruiter and the very next step is the technical exercise. So it's really a screening tool. Like they should be able to tell from your CV or something else, but it's just a screening tool to see if you're going to even proceed to an interview of any sort. And reason this sucks also in a poor economy like this is that, at least from my observation, and this is from applying to jobs, talking to people, going through the whole process, and then watching and doing some recon later, who got hired, right? I'm always interested, see what kind of things, what kind of person went in there. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, that's a great person I got beat out by. But sometimes it's a big lie. It's made up, and there's job postings that are just made up. Maybe they're just trying to practice their interview process. Maybe they're trying to get CVs and have a good handle on a talent pool. I don't know. Maybe they just have it so they're trying to keep the other employees happy, making them think they're going to get some help on the team. I don't know the exact reasons, but I think there's a lot of jobs that I've gone through a long process for, and I think they didn't hire anybody. And that's bullshit. Bullshit. So if you think about coding exercise as bullshit, imagine doing it for a job that will never even be a real job, and they're just wasting your time. So with this, be selective, do your research, think about the company, research what they're doing, try to figure out, is this a real role that they will really hire for? And think about, like, how can you get some value out of it besides just doing the technical exercise. Also push back, try to say no, see what happens. And best of luck to you if you're dealing with this too in 2025 fall. I guess it's September. And let me know, what's your experience been? Do you think technical exercises are fun? Do you think they're a good use of your time as an engineer applying for jobs? What about from the recruitment side? Have you seen it to be valuable? I'd be curious, what are the things that are actually valuable besides evaluating someone who's junior, who doesn't have any obvious experience that you can review or talk about? But please tell me, correct me if you think I'm wrong. All right. This is James Stone from jamesstone.com, james@jamesstone.com. And thanks for listening.